and Captain Cunningham was the one that had all the passes there. Desmond Doss just happened to be in front of me, right in front of me. So he got up there to get his pass. Cunningham looks over. You didn't qualify with a rifle. You can't get a pass to go in town. He says, Captain, he said, I don't have to touch a rifle. He says, it's on my record. I do not touch any weapons whatsoever. He says, you mean to tell me if you're in the house and a guy came in with a gun and your mother was sitting there, he said, I'm going to shoot your mother, and you had a gun nearby that you could have got and killed him. You mean to tell me you wouldn't have grabbed that gun and killed him?
I said, I wouldn't have no gun. You have a gun. You mean you wouldn't use it? I said, I wouldn't have a gun. You mean you wouldn't do nothing? I said, that's a horse of a different color. I didn't mean I wouldn't do anything. The only thing about it, when I got through with him, he probably wished he was dead. But as far as killing anybody, I don't want to kill nobody.
What do you mean, he says. And he went into a tantrum about that.
Man, he was strict at business. He had that carbine rifle, and he gave me a direct order. You take this gun, or you'll be court-martialed. I didn't take it. He grabbed it.
Everybody was getting restless. You know, guys were standing on one leg and then the other and looking around, rolling their eyes and everything else, you know.
Says, Doss, I don't want to have to court-martial you. I'm going to give you one more chance. He held up again, he dropped it. And I didn't grab it, he grabbed it. Says, Doss, I am not court-martialing you for refusing a direct order.
Another officer in our company happened to come in, and he stood there for a second and he saw what was going on. He says, it's right there on his record, Cunningham. He says, it's right there in black and white. He doesn't touch a rifle. He said, you don't have to, give him his pass. He says, he don't have anything to do about touching a rifle. Well, I can't understand that, he says, but he lost that argument.
Amazing just to think that, and you know, you look at the eyes of Desmond, and he's got that piercing look, you know, like no fear.
Well, I think the comment that Desmond makes afterwards about compromise was very important, because when I was at the National Archives, I came across documents from different denominations, including the Adventist, and any of the guys who had gone in as conscientious objectors, if they compromised once, they were carrying a gun the next day, because they had you at that point, because it was about your conviction. And if you were willing to compromise, then you weren't really convicted about that belief. And so that's something that, you know, when we wake up every day, do we really know what we're convicted of? Because we tend to compromise every day of our lives. And many of us don't know where we're drawing the line in the sand of where we won't cross that line during the course of any given day. And that's something that these men who were conscientious objectors and Desmond, they had very clear understanding of what their beliefs were before they went in, so that they could meet those tests that were thrown at them, right or wrong, and come through with flying colors. Most of them did.
Now, on the next bite that we have here, it actually shares some of the eyewitnesses that were there, some of his buddies that were actually in combat with him. To receive the Medal of Honor, you have to have eyewitness accounts, not just from one person, but from several people. And Desmond has the unique distinction that in his Medal of Honor citation, it not only is it one of the longest ones, but it's not for one action. Desmond got a reputation before he even got to Okinawa for crawling around and doing things against orders to go out and save the guys who were in the front lines or beyond the front lines when they had to retreat. And so by the time they got to Okinawa and Desmond performed this amazing feat of letting 75 men down a cliff, and having been at the battlefield, it was like walking on sacred ground over there, you know. And then to meet Carl Bentley, I brought a clip of Carl Bentley, who I took to Okinawa,
And Carl was one of the men who recommended Desmond for the Medal of Honor. So he saw what had happened. And
let's look at that next clip here.
Time after time, I saw dogs go back into the enemy, into the Japanese, and pick up wounded, and bring them there and let them down on these ropes and one thing and another off of the escarpment. And the bullets were flying like bees or something. It was miraculous. I couldn't understand how he could do this. I was praying the whole time. I just kept praying, Lord, please help me get one more. When I got this, I said, Lord, please help me get one more. It was as if God had his hand on his shoulder. It's the only explanation I can give.
Amazing, just praying, let me get one more, just amazing, huh?
When we were at the battlefield, there are 400 entombed Japanese soldiers that Jack Glover, another vet that I interviewed, had blown the cave shut on these guys. And there were several caves like that they did. And crawling around on this coral rock, there wasn't dirt, there weren't any trees. These guys were diving for cover on rock, sharp coral rock. And so Desmond, what he did, and what Carl was saying there, these guys were in their foxholes peeping around, and Desmond would go up there, and if you talk to Desmond, he says, I wasn't just like walking out there and pick the guy up, and he was crouching down and grab him by the collar, he says, and that. But the bottom line is that company of men was kicked off of that escarpment 9 times in 7 days. They lost 36 commanding officers in just a day and a half. They had guys, platoons that would go out with 30 guys, and they come back with 4 or 5 men. So the attrition rate was something that was so high that it affected the morale of the men. And Desmond's faith, in fact, he had the audacity to ask his commander to pray, and his commander let him do it. And they went up and came back and didn't suffer one casualty. And A company beside them got decimated. So these men saw Desmond in action and his faith in action in a way that not only encouraged them, but he became their security blanket. They thought he was blessed. They knew he was blessed. And they wanted to be around him. They would huddle around him. He'd tell them to get away from him because you're not supposed to congregate together. It's easier to get shot that way. So these men, one of the things in crisscrossing the country and interviewing them, most soldiers like to talk about what they did and how they made a contribution. And every single one of the men that I talked to just gushed about Desmond. I mean, gushed. I mean, it got to the point that, you wondered if this guy was going to walk on water at some point. But they really, truly loved this man. And these are the same men that harassed him and abused him. And if you can imagine being one of those men and being up on the escarpment, and here comes the guy that you were throwing your boots at him when he was kneeling at his cot and praying, or his bunk, and then he's coming up there to rescue you. You're left up there. 100 guys were left up on at one point that Desmond pulled down 75 of them. And
to safety. Unbelievable. Now, as a result of this, which is only fitting, we're going to show the next clip where Des received the Medal of Honor from President Truman. Let's go ahead and roll that clip.
Let's put him in for the Medal of Honor.
15 heroes decorated by President Truman with a Congressional Medal of Honor. Then the conscientious objector hero, Corporal Desmond Doss, refused to fight, refused to kill. A medical corpsman, he displayed self-sacrificing valor in the care of the wounded. Now he receives the nation's highest military decoration and explains his view as a conscientious objector.
Thank God for letting me do my part in this war and saving the lives of my fellow men.